My name is Maggie Reagh, and I've been a yoga therapist since 2003. I finished my training in India at that point. I've been teaching yoga since 1999, started as an Ashtangi, went to Mysore in 2000, studied at the Parakala Mutt, where actually Krishnamacharya did his Vedic studies and taught yoga at the palace across the street. So it was interesting to have that connection. And when I was there, I had this soul call that told me, go to the source. Came back to Vancouver, ran into two people who told me what that meant, and contacted the Krishnamacharya Yoga Mandiram in Chennai, and ended up studying there for a couple of years, where I met my teachers, Danielle Schroeder and Vijay Vasu, and they started their own school. I followed them and have continued to study with them since 2001 in the Krishnamacharya tradition, as taught by his son, TKV Desgachar. So this is a picture of my current students. They're a lovely group. We call them the Lucky Eight. There's actually one more who's not in the picture. And they had the program in person, except for our last term. We went remote quite successfully. Neil and Danielle and Tracy, they all participated, and it's been quite an experience, and has changed my view on online teaching as a result. So what makes the program unique? So it's accredited. So we were one of 12 programs to become accredited in 2014. Something that makes it quite unique is that because of my training in Chennai, India, we go into a lot of depth on the traditional practices from the Krishnamacharya tradition. It's also really important to me that you have a well-rounded education, not just focused in a lineage, but you also understand current practices from the West. You will be studying with my teachers, the Schroeders in Chennai, who are master yoga therapists, and that includes an internship with them, which is quite a rare experience. The program is organized for students from around the world. We've had students from Ireland, China, Taiwan, Chile, the United States, England, and of course all over Canada, and particularly British Columbia, where we're located. The classes are small. I've looked at expanding a couple of times, but my heart always leads me back to wanting to keep the program small. 10 to 12 students is our normal class size. And there's a picture from this last February when we go to Chennai for our term 2. We visit the Krishnamacharya Yoga Mandiram, and this is a picture of TKV Desgachar, which I love, and we had this picture taken. So in Vancouver, you also have the opportunity to study with senior yoga therapists and specialists. We have, of course, the faculty you've already met, but we also have specialists in different areas, including trauma-sensitive yoga, yoga for disabilities, and other areas. Yoga therapy research is really important to me. It's also an important mandate of the International Association of Yoga Therapists. And this part of the program is unique from what I understand, that we have you do a research-based case study at the end of the program. We also have 1,000 hours of programming. The minimum requirement is 800 hours for the IYT. Because the internship is very important to me, and the research project, we have these extra hours. We have 30 to 34 hours a week in 3 mixed mode intensive terms. Term 1 is now divided between 2 summers. So the whole program is now 3 years, which is a change from previous versions that have been 2 years. My very first version was actually 3 years. So I'm back to 3 years, and I'll talk more about that later. After each intensive term, including the 2 parts of term 1, we have practicums that you do at home, and you're mentored by me and also by faculty when necessary. I bring my faculty on board to support your practicums. We do accept transfer credits from REYT 500 schools when those courses transfer properly into our courses. I always have you audit the courses that you've transferred over. So you still sit in on the classes, but you get a financial credit for transferring credits. And here's a picture from last February. These are my teachers, Devi and Radha Schroeder, and my current group. And they also have teachers who assist them. So, as I think all of you know, the prerequisite is a 200-hour or equivalent, and you need at least 1 year of teaching and practice experience. The format, as I mentioned, is 3 intensive terms. They now have some online elements to them and distance learning practicums after each intensive. We have 1,000 hours, and some of those, a lot of those are in person, even in the COVID version that is being launched next summer. Of those hours, a chunk of them is synchronous and a chunk is asynchronous. So of the online hours, some of them, a lot of them are in person, so to speak, live, and others are offline. That's the practicum where you're doing your work in your practicum. It's over 3 years now, not 2. And at the end of the program, you become a certified yoga therapist at the 1,000-hour level. You get a diploma from me. And with that diploma, you can apply to become a certified yoga therapist through the IAYT and become a CIAYT. It's a picture of me and the Schroeders. So in term 1, this is a big change in the program. I'm doing this in part because of COVID, but also I'm doing it to see how it works to bring long-term part of the program online. And the reason for doing that is that the foundation of term 1 is very, very important. There's so much information in that first term, and my previous groups have found it a little bit overwhelming to have 10 weeks of that experience before they go to India. And that's been some feedback that I've had over the years. So I've looked at different things, having a midterm break, and it's worked in the past, but I'm looking to improve this by making term 1 over 2 summers with an 8-month internship in between, online or in person. And I think this will lead to a much stronger foundation before we dive into the deeper aspects of the work. So there are the dates for you. 150 hours. I'm looking at these times. This is to be negotiated depending on where you all live. At this point, I do have someone who's joined the program from Europe. So I'm looking at 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Mondays through Fridays as the schedule for the online to allow time zones even into Asia to join the program. After the 5 weeks online from September through April, you will have 20 hours of internship, which you can do online, or if we are back in person by next fall, which I predict we will be, I will be back at my studio in Vancouver, and you're welcome to do your internship with me in person. And this is also something that is more connected to my very first group that I taught between 2009 and 2013. They did all of their internships with me in this way. And I'm hoping to give you a taste of that more traditional long-term internship experience. So that gives you some ideas of the classes that I have at present. Hopefully these times will work for different time zones. And if, you know, a particular week you're not available, you can always follow the class asynchronously on YouTube. All my classes are recorded. Even when I go back to in-person, I plan to do some mixed mode work. And there's a picture of a couple of my current students in the studio in Vancouver. So when we're back in person for another 5 weeks, those are your dates. Similar schedule, except of course, the time will be adjusted. It's in person from 12 noon to 6 p.m. This allows you to have the mornings free and the evenings free, and we do the same thing in India. The exception to that is the internship, which will be in person when we're all together. 2 mornings a week, you come and assist me in teaching classes. After we finish this 5 weeks, you'll be starting your first practicum, and you'll be delivering yoga therapy in groups. Everything you do in your practicum, you've prepared for in person during this section and the previous part. You've already prepared for through observing, assisting, and delivering yoga therapy. So that's the progression that I use to teach my classes. We've got our sun rising here in Garden Bay on the Sunshine Coast. So I might have to put my blind down in a sec. We'll see how it goes. And that internship is from September to December. Practicum rather. This is a picture of one of our very popular teachers, Tian Allen. I forgot to mention her. She teaches almost 30 hours in the program of restorative yoga therapy with musculoskeletal as well as systemic conditions. Okay, in term 2, we head off to India. This is one of the more unique aspects of the program. And I'll just have to speed up a bit, it looks like. So it goes from January to February, 12 to 6, Monday through Fridays. You have 1 morning a week where you observe my teachers delivering yoga therapy. So this is your observation part of your internship. And then you have a practicum thereupon. The practicum for both term 1 and 2 are about teaching yoga therapy in groups. And I don't suggest you do private yoga therapy until after term 3. Another picture of us in India. And I'm just going to put my shade down as the sun comes up. There we go. Okay, so term 3, I now call it the integration term because it's where everything comes together. It's 7 weeks, it's in person, it's courses and internship. Those are the dates. Similar time, the internship. This is the part where you start delivering yoga therapy with me mentoring you. And the practicum thereupon, similar, you're doing it in your hometown. There's also a case study project. It used to be a paper, it's now a project presentation, and it's based on research and also you delivering yoga therapy and tracking the progress of your student. And that's quite long. The practicum and case study runs from September to May. So it's 8 months, and then you graduate. So we're coming to the end. The tuition fees, students always ask me about this, so I thought I'd lay it out for you a bit. So you start with a down payment once you've enrolled, and then you pay your term 1. If you pay early by January 1st, you save 100 Canadian, so encourage you to catch that. And we have our term 2, these are the dates, and term 3. All right, so are there any burning questions? And if not, I will turn it over to our faculty to say a little bit more about what they do. So if you have questions, just maybe hold them till the end, unless there's a burning one that you're dying to ask. All right. Okay. All right, so let's start with, who do we have on the screen? We'll start with Neil. And we're on time.
Thanks, Maggie. So I'm just going to take a few minutes and talk about the things that we present and talk about within the anatomy and physiology, more of the musculoskeletal system. So we'll be talking about the common injuries that people have, and getting into really applied anatomy to that. So, you know, what I teach is not just like sitting down going through all the anatomy. It's more like, if this is the condition has to do with the shoulder, then we start to get in talking about both the anatomy of the shoulder, but also the physiology, so which is pretty darn important. And we also talk about the pathology of it. And so within all this, we're weaving together an understanding of tissue pathology and tissue healing. And one of the things that I'd be sharing with you a lot is a lot of evidence around this, which hopefully that doesn't make you scared about it, because we'll be you know, sharing in some of that science bit so that we can look at the really fascinating combination, at least to me fascinating, of the evidence we've got from Western medicine, and then the experiences and evidence we have from yoga teaching and yoga therapy itself, and try to weave these two together, which I think is so important as part of this. And it's something I've really loved learning. I've been a physiotherapist since 1985, and same as Maggie, I got my first certificate in yoga therapy in 2003, and then really have been looking at how do we weave these two things together? How do we integrate them together? So we really will be talking to them as best as I can from both sides of the Western science, as well as the yoga teaching, yoga therapy. So as I said, we go through, what is it when a tissue gets injured? What happens to the tissue? And then what's a normal process of healing? And then we also get into the idea of pain. So pain is such a big issue. It's one of the reasons that people come to therapy a lot of times. And even when people come to yoga classes, of course, you know that we get pain during yoga classes. So we try to address this, what is happening when pain persists to the body, and what is happening to really the person and the rest of their existence around pain. And once again, really tying those together, the Western view of what persistent pain is about, but also the views of yoga and the teachings of yoga that actually provide us with even more things that we can do to help people out when they have ongoing pain. So, and as Maggie said, the first year we'll focus more on what do you do when you're providing yoga therapy in a group. So we're talking about a lot of the same topics each 2 times that we're together. The first year focusing much more on how do you apply this to a group therapeutic practice, which I'm happy to tell you that I've taught group therapeutic yoga classes a lot, so I can share some of my experience there as well. And then the second year we come back and you get to hear some of the same stuff again, which will help to consolidate it even better as we apply those same that same knowledge towards what would we do when a person with, sorry, what would we do with an individual who has right, who has one of these issues, and how do we address them on that one-to-one basis? And so it's almost like the first year you can think of how do we morph yoga, yeah, how do we morph teaching yoga to a group of people, and the second year is much more how do you morph it to the person. So looking at what's happening in the person, then coming up with, well, what would we do around yoga therapy based on those musculoskeletal issues? And I think that's the whole thing. I'm also involved with the capstone paper, and I guess I should just reinforce that in terms of research, I'm such a research geek. So I will give you as much I know about that side and help you to be an even better critical reviewer of things you read in the research or even in the Western medicine or yoga teaching about MSK things.
Thank you. Thank you, Neil. That's great. Danielle?
Hi. So I'm a yoga teacher. I haven't been teaching yoga for a while, but I have been teaching yoga for many years. And also kind of side by side with that, I became I went and did my master's in counseling psychology. And so I've always loved the combination of fusing the two, because as working as a yoga teacher, often what I teach a lot in my course is how we have to have a bit of a better understanding of how the mental health, the emotional health of a person, and also the actual, how that relationship you carry with, whether you're teaching a group or individually with a client, how important that piece is in our healing beyond the body, beyond all the other parts, but this therapeutic rapport and the safety we create for people. And I, as a yoga teacher, I noticed that I found in a lot of classes, and when I was teaching just regular classes, I didn't feel a lot of teachers I would go to had a deep respect for that part, or didn't recognize how your role, especially when you're working with the body, can, really have an effect on the person you're helping. And so when I learned about yoga therapy, I was really excited about that, because as I became a clinical counselor, I was really working with people around, a lot of stuff around attachment. And, we all come into our, our lives with a lot of history, into the present day life. And so, I think when I had that background in counseling and I started to hear about yoga therapy, I was excited to know that yoga therapists were really interested to really create, a full, a really healing space for people. And I think what I love about this program, that when Maggie asked me if I want to come join it, I was really excited because I got to kind of fuse my love of counseling and therapeutic rapport and safety and attachment and teach all those things to people, always with the lens that you're going out to do yoga therapy, which I love yoga too. And I love the whole medicine of yoga and the tradition of it from India. And so for me, it's a lot about I have to give you a lot of information. So I will say, I have to teach you a lot about mental health. It's like trying to like smush in years of people going to counseling programs and, psychology programs and university, and just trying to teach it very condensed in a way that I feel you need some of the background. So I will teach you in the main component, I guess that will probably be year 3. I'll do a lot around giving you a whole background around what is mental health really about. And now, of course, I like to really bring in the systemic issues, the larger, these larger issues in the structures of society that also really come into play around how our lives go. And I think that's such a big part that I brought in more this last term because of, I think so much going on in the world right now. So a lot about the inner world, what's happening around, again, these core issues around attachment, trauma, but again, from a more of emotions, how do we start to even get to know what are emotions, and teaching you a lot about that, how to help people when they're having a big emotion like grief or fear, and how you can feel like you can be with them in a way that you don't feel frightened by that. So I hope what I build for you is your own stamina, that, you can start to understand some of what might be happening on that level for people beyond just the sort of physical issues they're coming to you with. And a lot, I hope that I can help together you as a group feel more connected to share with each other on that level. And I think a lot of the learning for people in my class comes as people share their own stories with each other around these mental health topics. Because what we learn is that, you know, we all have a lot of, whether our own personal experience with mental health or emotional health or trauma or loss and grief, but people in our life, you know, our families. So I think our own vulnerability shows up a lot. So yeah, so I bring a lot of that. And then with the group part at the beginning, we talk about how do you create safety in a group setting. So it's a lot of like kind of teaching you, you know, the history of like some psychology and some of these core concepts. People who came up with a lot of concepts around attachment and trauma and different ways of healing. And then we also then practice together. So you'll get to do some work together where you'll break off into groups and practice doing some skills around helping. So then I start to teach you some more practical skills. So it's I really love the course, and I'm always there kind of after, you know, sometimes students will then, when they get into their work, they will touch base with me to say, hey, I've got this client that I'm kind of not sure about, or I feel a bit overwhelmed because they've got a lot of grief, or can you support me with that? And so I'm always happy to be that resource for people too. So it's yeah, I really love teaching the course very much.
Thank you, Danielle. And that's a part of the program that's been evolving that I will be bringing into the curriculum is the mentoring aspect. I do most of the mentoring during the practicum, but in the next round, I'll be inviting you to do certain number of hours with our faculty in their specialty areas, because that's just been happening by, you know, naturally, and it makes a lot of sense to me. So I'm adding that piece. That's kind of a new piece that I'm just working on right now. So thank you, Danielle, and you've been really supporting the students a lot during this COVID time, the current group on practicum, a lot going on for them. Tracy, I turn it over to you.
Sure, thanks, Maggie. So I'm a physiotherapist, and so my clinical practice has primarily been in musculoskeletal, but I've also done some work in stroke, brain injury, neuro rehab. So I kind of bring that clinical piece, but I'm an educator. I'm the chair of allied health at Capilano, so I do some teaching there. And so what I enjoy about teaching in the yoga therapy program is what we've already highlighted a couple of times here, is we're bringing the East and West together. So through my concern about how hard it is for students to retain and remember anatomy, I initially sort of fell into meditation as a strategy to enhance retention. And a decade later have really become very convinced of the clinical potential of mindfulness in combination with some other therapeutic interventions. So I did a clinical trial on the combination of physiotherapy, traditional physiotherapy for individuals with stroke and brain injury, combining it with mindfulness and meditation, and had some exciting results. So I'm kind of that mixed bag of the physio, the educator, the researcher, but also very interested in yoga and meditation. So fun to get to be part of this program, because that really helps bring some of that stuff together. So I teach the anatomy and physiology for systemic conditions. Neil and I sort of split up a lot of that. And I'm also involved in the capstone projects as a bit of a research mentor as well. And one of the pieces that I really wanted to make sure that I covered in the content was objective measures. So being able to tell whether, as a yoga therapist, you're making an impact. So I teach some basic objective measures like muscle testing and goniometry. And then I also talk a lot about, you know, when you're doing your capstone, when you're doing a case study, how are you going to, you know, what are you going to select as an outcome measure? So that's kind of a role that I've had as well. So I think that about covers it. I don't think I said earlier that I'm actually in Vancouver, but it's a pleasure to be part of this. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. And I work with Tracy at Capilano University in my other life. We're part of the same big faculty. She's a coordinator of the Rehab Assistance Program, and I'm the coordinator of English for Academic Purposes, which is another part of my life that's now part-time. So it's fun to be in the yoga program part of my life in my summers. And all the faculty I would consider friends, peers. They've been hand selected very, very carefully. And there's great synergy between us and support between us and then with all of our students as well. So I'm going to turn it over, we're right on time, to our graduates. So I'm going to start with Kelly in Paul River.
And I shall remember to unmute myself. Okay, so wow, I'm listening to you guys talk and I want to do the program all over again. These guys are such amazing teachers. Oh my goodness, I learned so much about yoga. I learned so much about myself. And I think that's something that, you know, we forget when we do something like a yoga program. You have 1,000 hours to dig in and really get to know yourself. So you guys would be really lucky to have this program over 3 years, because there's a lot that these guys give you. And I know from my experience how they deliver this huge body of knowledge is in such a way that you really get to embody it. It's not overwhelming. I know sometimes in programs it's sort of like this huge dump of a download, but with these guys that's not how they teach it. It's you're really held. They're very supportive, super approachable. So I know that I really enjoyed my time doing the program. So being in Pearl River, I'm kind of in this very it's not a small town, it's a small city, but I'm really lucky. I have a good reputation. A lot of the doctors, the GPs know that I'm a yoga therapist, so they will refer their clients to me as students, which is really lovely. Yeah, I can't say enough about how much you will gain from doing this course. And I think one of my biggest takeaways from this course has been just really getting confidence in my own voice, not just in speaking, but also with writing. Thank you, all of you, beautiful, beautiful teachers. But yeah, I really gained a lot of confidence around writing and being an authoritative writer. So I think that's all I have to say. I actually have little bullet points to keep me on track so that I don't go off. But yeah, so this is an amazing course, and it's a small group, and you build a community with each other. I know Karen was on my with my class. We were graduating together, and our group, and she'll attest to this, we're still all in touch with each other. So yeah, it's a really beautiful, beautiful course.
Thank you, Kelly. Much love. Karen from North Vancouver.
Hi there. That's right. It's Karen from North Vancouver. And so I think I'll first just share my experience through the program. Within that 2-year program, there were many jewels within each term. And as Kelly said, the faculty really is extraordinary. The best of the best, you know, and in India, our teachers there, an incredible experience to be with them and to witness how they practice yoga therapy. So, and as Kelly had mentioned as well, you know, we had 12, 13 within our cohort, and it was such a beautiful group of people. And the whole 2 years was quite amazing. I am really happy to hear that it's turning into a 3-year program, because I was definitely one of those people who gave the feedback with term 1, 10 weeks was a bit too intense, because there's a lot to integrate. So it's really wonderful. It's turning into a 3-year program. So there's time for that integration process. And also to live a little more sustainably as a human being. And if you're working or you are a parent, I think it's really helpful that it's a 3-year program. Currently, as a yoga therapist, I'm in private practice. I am very blessed to have a large home studio, and that's where I've been working within yoga since 2011, really. And so it's worked out quite well for me to be in private practice, but I do really want to go working in collaboration with other practitioners, more into integrative medicine next year, once we pass through this challenging time we're all in right now. So I'm also a personal growth student within transpersonal psychology. So that really helps me a lot with my helping skills within yoga therapy. And I'm a student of all of the sacred texts within all the traditions. So that also keeps me deeply connected to my own inner work process. And currently, I'm studying with Neil in a 10-month program and going deeper into science and pain care. What else did I want to say? I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them at the end of all this. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And yes, many of my students continue their education post-program, and programs like Neil's pain care program, also trauma sensitive training with Nicole Marcia. We have faculty who are all in their own right specialists in particular areas of yoga therapy, and I really encourage my students to continue their education, and that is actually part of the IAYT's mandate as well. So that's also something I'll be developing in the program, is more graduate courses. So see that very soon. All right, can I call on Rob?
Yes, you can. Hello, everybody. My name is Rob. I'm a 2017 graduate. Yeah, I'm hearing everybody click through their bullet points, and I'm like, hey, those are mine. Hold on. Yeah, where to start? First of all, the program for me personally was life-changing, as Kelly pointed out in her testimony. You don't go through a program like this without personal introspection and personal change. It just created a snowball effect for me. Absolutely changed my life. I wanted to learn more about yoga and take a deeper dive, going beyond everything just being asana focused. And it definitely was that. And it's just, yeah, my continued studies and just the way I conduct my life after attending this program has been monumental, just from the exposure from the mentors, from Maggie. Maggie is so deeply rooted in the lineage, classical yoga. So you get that wonderful deep dive with her, but she brings in just the most top-notch mentors. I had the privilege of having Neil and Danielle as my mentors when I was there, and just, and everybody else, I just can't say enough about them. Really top-notch. These are people that are really on their game in their fields, and it's really a privilege. And there's such a diverse range of mentors. We have a few here, but there's so many things you're going to learn about, trauma-informed, working with adaptive yoga styles for people with disabilities. We were doing work regularly with people with cerebral palsy and MS. You get counseling skills, knowledge in chronic pain, restorative yoga with Tian, who's just fantastic. The capstone work, taking it into research. I loved that part, which writing my research paper, which I might be in the minority, but I absolutely loved that. And Neil's support during that time was just stellar. So yeah, a big point. Maggie's work as a director and a ringleader of bringing in really quality and a large, diverse group of people in different healing practices is, I've never taken another yoga therapy course, but I imagine it's got to be up there, or maybe unmatched in a lot of them. As for what I'm doing, so yoga was not what I was doing before I came in, and it's still not what I do now. I have another day job. And I've been over the past years working with a local medical center. I wanted to go into clinical work when I came out of this. So I'm actually working with a local clinic in what they call their quality of life program, which is yoga for complex care patients with chronic pain. Neil's work has really been helpful in there because he's a specialist in chronic pain. So applying that has been really wonderful. And it's basically a puzzle when you're working with a large group of people with a really wide range of comorbidities and symptoms and issues, and being able to go beyond just the physical approach to healing and taking it into the mental and into their entire communal, social, genetic, their whole worldview, and approaching healing from that way, as opposed to just trying to fall back on a perfect asana for every fix, is really what you get out of this program. And you leave with some confidence that you can approach everybody with a set of principles to start with. And that's really valuable. I think I'm done with my time.
Thank you, Rob. Wonderful. Sure. You each brought a great snapshot of the program in. And just before I turn it over to all of you, I actually forgot to tell you what I teach. So you might want to know that. So I teach yoga therapy in the program, the yoga therapy practices, musculoskeletal based, and then more the systemic conditions as well. And I match my teaching with what Neil and Tracy are teaching in anatomy physiology. And then I'm also the primary teacher of Ayurveda as applied to yoga therapy. And I bring in specialists like my friend Todd Caldecott and Jai Sri Lambart. They're Ayurvedic doctors in the community to give you knowledge from their perspectives as well. And that's very much within the scope of yoga therapy, focused on diet and lifestyle. So I try not to take you too far off the deep end beyond that. I prepare you for what you're about to get in India, which is really important, so you can get the most out of your experience in India. And every year I've done a better job of that. And the last group, my teacher Schroeder said, "Yeah, you've done it. You're you're good. Just keep doing what you're doing." So that was very reassuring. And I hope that I demonstrate to all of you what it means to be a student first of yoga and a teacher / therapist second. Having that humility and understanding of how yoga works. It's about us doing our own work. And this program has taught me tremendously, has transformed me through the teaching of it, because I've been a student of all of my students. I am your student. I learn from you. I change things. I adapt. I'm like, that's working. That's not working. How can I serve you? And then I teach and offer and give what I can. So we're going to turn it over to you if you have any questions for us. Thank you.
So in preparation for questions, if you would like to raise your hand, you can do that by clicking on the participants icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen there, and at the bottom of that pop-up window, you'll see at the bottom it says raise hand. So you can go ahead and do that, or you can write your question in the chat box and I'll read it out for you. Wonderful. We have a question from Gabriella. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
As I was listening, I was wondering if there's any nutrition aspect in the course. I didn't ask that before, Maggie.
Yes. So Gabriella, in the Ayurveda courses, so there's 2 courses. The term 1 course is very focused on food, diet, and lifestyle. And then in term 3, you see me apply that in my yoga therapy cases. And I now have, because of COVID and delivering term 3 online, I have, I think, about 40 hours of case study videos now. So you'll have that also to view, and how I work with people. And diet is a big piece. And Todd Caldecott, his book Food as Medicine, is a core book in our curriculum, and that's very much the parameters of what I teach in Ayurveda primarily. In term 3, I also go into how the systemic conditions are viewed from an Ayurvedic lens and how we use that in application in yoga therapy. Thank you. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, no, totally. It just kind of makes sense, right? Like, I'm really into nutrition and health. So I was just like, that would be missing a piece. So it's not.
Yeah. It's one of the 4 aspects of traditional yoga therapy according to Krishnamacharya, aharam, food. So I very much use the tradition to inform everything I deliver, and diet is a huge piece.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Any other questions? There are no silly questions.
It looks like Vinay has a question. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay, so yeah, no, I have several questions, but one is always, now with this being a 3-year program, Maggie, and how are you going to organize it? I feel like I need to get a calendar and plot in all the different parts. I find it a bit confusing. So say, for example, in the term 1, the part 1, the 5 weeks in your hometown. Now, are you delivering coursework online? As if I'm in a classroom, I'm going to be sitting there. Is that correct? Am I right in that? Okay.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, so it's synchronous delivery, so it's live delivery. It will all be recorded and posted privately on our YouTube channel for the school. All the lectures are posted. All of my lectures and other lectures. We have a platform called Moodle, which is an e-learn platform that all of our materials are posted on. So it's a paper-free program as much as possible, even when it's in person. So those first 5 weeks are live from 7 a.m. To 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Monday through Friday over 5 weeks. There's no internship in the first part. The internship is the 8 months after, which involves following my live classes that I am presently delivering online, but expect to be delivering also in person in a mixed mode platform, recorded, students joining me online and live. And my students can either join me live, come to the studio and take the class as participants, or they can join me online. So that's to give you 8 months of input of the work that you learn theoretically / practically during those first 5 weeks online.
I see. Thank you. That explains it. All right. And then we'll move into the second year, which will look very similar.
Yeah, the second year is in person, 5 weeks, and it will be 12 to 6 daily Pacific Standard Time. We're all there in person, and the internship will be live in person 2 mornings a week with groups that you'll be observing me teach, and you will actually move into starting to teach yourselves during those final 5 weeks. So the first 5 weeks online, you're observing and or assisting if you're in person with me. And the second 5 weeks, that summer 2, you will be delivering yoga therapy in groups with that preparation of that year before. And then you go off and do your practicum, and you're doing delivering yoga therapy in groups in your hometown.
I understand. Perfect. So the internship, the 2 mornings a week, that's all during the same June, July period.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. So those in-person terms have been cut back, from, it used to be 10 weeks for term 1. In one summer, it's now 2 summers. So summer 1, summer 2 is, I think, how I'm going to say it to make it easier for people to understand. Term 1, summer 2.
Thank you. And all of this, I know that you sent it to me before, but I would so appreciate that sent to me again.
Yes.
Just all syllabus.
Yeah, I've got yes. I'll be sending people probably a PDF of this PowerPoint ongoing, just to make it a little easier to move through the information.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
That was also a question in the chat from Kelly. Are we going to receive all the material you have shown us? And you have answered that. I do not see any more raised hands at the moment.
Gabby?
Hi, yeah, I'm in your PowerPoint presentation, you had the internship times Thursday night, and then it was Sunday night. Is that right?
Sunday morning.
Oh, it says 10 something to 11:30 p.m. for the
Sunday. It should say AM, so I'll correct that.
I was just like, oh, that's late.
No, that's a mistake.
Okay.
Sorry, we didn't catch that. So that's great. Yeah. So that's to, I do that for my students to provide 2 different kinds of classes. The Thursday night class is a supine class. It's more restorative. It's more about slowing down, getting ready for sleep. And it's also an easier class physically than my Sunday morning, which is primarily standing poses. And that's from 10 to 11:30 Sunday morning. Okay. So I'm hoping that those times work for my students. If not, I will probably have to either add a class or adjust one of those times, but I probably will just add a class if that happens at a different time.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
There is a question from Shannon as well. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Shannon.
Hi, sorry. I'm trying to get used to Zoom on the phone. I've been doing it on my computer, so it's anyway, sorry. So I guess my question is, it's kind of a practical question, but I'm wondering about income really from this type of profession. I come from being able to bill MSP for services and understand the business running aspect of it and how to get clients and that, but I am wondering about, I guess, the demand for the services. And it seems like I get yoga therapy, and it's been such a long journey to understand what it is, and I'm just wondering how the general public perceives it and what kind of work is needed to get it more out there.
Yeah, I'll say a little bit, and then Neil might want to join me on that one. It really depends on the person. Most people, I would say, end up specializing in a particular area. So yoga for persistent pain, yoga for cancer, yoga for disabilities, yoga, trauma sensitive yoga, that kind of thing. And most of my grads work both in groups and privately, but some of them move to just private work. In terms of income, it's kind of all over the place. At this point, if you don't have a profession that allows you to bill insurance companies, people are paying out of pocket for the most part for your work. I do work with ICBC with clients, and that's come through relationships with physiotherapy clinics who will refer clients who are ICBC claimants. That's our car insurance. If you're not familiar with that term if you're from another country. So I think what is coming in the future is that we will be covered by insurance like RMTs are, massage therapists, counselors, etc. We're not there yet. I personally look forward to that day. I suggest my students to keep their day job and gradually move from full-time to part-time as they can. And then some of my students do end up doing it full-time. So it's a possibility. I think it's a pretty hard route at this point, unless you have another profession that allows you to bill. So that's my perfectly honest answer on that. We're pioneers in the field, and I hope within 10 years, and after I retire from Capilano in 4 years, I will be working on that as a project. I really believe that we should be covered by insurance.
Yeah,
Neil?
I could just add a couple things. I think there's almost two, you can think of it as two paths. You can take the path in which you're integrating in with a Western medical system, in which that group is recognizing the benefit of yoga for so many different areas, and they're integrating it into what they're doing. The other path is really more of a path of being an entrepreneur, of setting up your own practice and working out there. I mean, it's a different world too, because in when you're doing it on your own, where you're doing this sort of parallel path, what you will find is that you're actually providing it to people who are blessed with a good income or a good money source to start with. Yet I think there's got to be ways that we just haven't sorted out yet how we can actually from there provide this access to marginalized groups even from there. But just one other piece I want to add around this is that I really excited a couple of weeks ago because the Veteran Affairs in the United States and Canada are both shifting, at least in terms of chronic pain management. So I'm guessing they'll be shifting in their other areas of healthcare as well. They have a stepped care model, and their model is in terms of their first step was primary care. So you see a primary care professional, doctor, physiotherapist, chiropractor. And then if that's not good enough, they move you into a specialist, the secondary care. If that's not helping you enough, then they move you into tertiary, which is a big, expensive group of people all working together. But what now they've actually done is they've added a first step below all those that actually is below and integrated, and it's a step of what we do. It's a step of providing people with education and movement practices and self-care practices. And the really nice thing is that as that step comes in, what's happening is all the people in the other steps are learning that step needs to carry on the whole time. And so as those kinds of groups like Veteran Affairs starts to have their influence on the health system, there's going to be more people looking for yoga therapy, because none of the other complementary therapies have the evidence that we have, right? And of course the VA is really, the VA loves yoga therapy in just basically every form. So anyway, so there's I guess I would say the reason I'm saying that is because it will be growing. It's really fascinating to watch over the last year or two that there's a bunch of things happening in different places that finally people are starting to recognize that this kind of approach should be the first thing that we do, not the thing that we do last when none of the medical system hasn't worked anymore. And so that really will, I think, has the potential of opening up a lot more work in this area.
Thank you, Neil. That's good news. I wasn't aware of that, so I'll talk to you more about that later. Okay, so
did you
I
see
think
the
Rob had a
message?
question.
More so, I just wanted to speak a little bit to that, if I may, just briefly. I do work in a clinic. I'm an unlicensed professional. You know, I do not have what it would be a state or federally recognized license like you would find in physical therapy, physiotherapy, or massage therapy, chiropractics, acupuncture. So that is a bit of a hurdle, at least here in the States, working in a clinical setting. They want somebody probably mostly for liability reasons with a license. The work that I'm doing and the group that I'm with, I can't call it yoga in the clinical setting. I can't say that. I can't say going into Shavasana. I can't throw out any Sanskrit that will turn off a lot of people that we have in the area and be frowned upon. But I'm taking the knowledge that I've acquired and applying it. It's totally applicable. As Neil pointed out, you'll see a lot of research coming out, and the language is very different in the research. Biopsychosocial, spiritual, is sort of a way they'll define viewing the whole person, viewing their whole life. And these are yoga foundations. They're just called something different, So there's, I've found the ability to work in a clinical setting where I can't speak specifically in yoga terms, but the knowledge is still applicable. And I spent a period of time working with clients individually as well. So doing the entrepreneurial side and trying to do that. And yeah, as Maggie pointed out, you're going to end up working with a population that's paying out of pocket. So people that can afford whatever your time might be to work with them. But there's really a pull to want to work with more disadvantaged populations. I found a way to do that in a clinical setting, but it can't call it yoga in my specific situation. But as I said, the knowledge is still applicable. But yeah, to address the question earlier, I would say there's a bit of knowledge in informing the population as well. People know what a chiropractor is. They know what an acupuncturist is. They know what a massage is. But if you say, oh, maybe you should see a yoga therapist, there's a bit of education that has to go with that because they'll be like, well, I can't put my foot behind my head. Why would I do that? It's sort of the general population's view of what yoga is. So there's a certain amount of education that I think that is necessary in some circles, but as Neil said, it's growing. Personally, I have a Google alert for the words yoga therapist when I graduated from the program, and I still have that running. So anytime those two words appear in the World Wide Web, I get a notification, something about yoga therapist. I have seen one job advertised in the past 3 years looking for a yoga therapist, and it was at Walter Reed Hospital, the largest VA hospital in the States. So as far as jobs, it's not going to be like an accountant or a lawyer where people are looking you to join a firm to become their yoga therapist. So I definitely think the entrepreneurial aspect of it is where you're probably going to have to go at this point, unless you can somehow slide in or you have some other license, like be you a clinical psychologist or a counselor or a physical therapist or a massage therapist, where you might be able to employ your yoga therapy skills in a licensed practice.
Thank you. Thank you, Rob. And I just want to say, if you need to leave, I know Danielle needs to take off, please feel free. And thank you for your time, and we'll be in touch by email. We'll just take one more. Kelly, you had some comments, I believe. Was it Kelly Edwards or another Kelly? Oh, it was Kelly. It was my Kelly from Burnaby.
Yes.
It's funny. Kelly with an I.
Actually, I don't want to interrupt the chat because I have a lot of personal questions, and I really want to know who and then how can I contact you to get all my clarifications. I want to know about also the credits from bringing from other school. So it's a different situation, so it's very personal. So just
email me.
Okay.
So Maggie at yogatherapyinternational.com. And I will answer what I can by email. And if we need to, we'll set up a time to talk as well. Okay. And probably in your case, it sounds like we should probably just chat. Okay. So we'll set up a time to talk. Thank you. Anything else? All right.
I think that's it. Yeah, there are no other questions in the chat either.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for everyone for spending some of your morning with us. And I look forward to hearing from you. Some of you are already enrolled. Some of you are thinking of enrolling. Drop me a line. We will send you, I think through Suzanne, because she's got all of your emails, or my colleague Corrine perhaps. You'll get an email with the PowerPoint sent as a PDF, so you can look at that. With my contact information, I'll be copied on that, and feel free to reach out for further questions by email, or I'm happy to book some time to talk to you as well.